So, hello everyone, and lovely to have you with me this evening to go through a little bit more about medicinal mushrooms and mycotherapy. So it was lovely to meet a lot of you at the weekend, and I had just a short time to really bring everybody through what Hifas de Terra is all about and mycotherapy, and I quickly ran through some of the mushrooms. But today we're going to go through a little bit more of just to explain a little bit more about a lot more of the mushrooms, and go through maybe some protocols and how you might use some of these mushrooms and our extracts perhaps in clinical practice. So I am just going to move on to my slides here. So lovely to meet you all last weekend. So, okay, we're going to go through the medicinal mushrooms and just explain to you a little bit about mycotherapy, which I didn't really get to explain too much at the weekend, so we'll quickly go through that. So just to introduce you then to mycotherapy, which is something that we can all begin to use more in practice, and especially when we're looking at autoimmune conditions. I'm going to present then some of our key mushrooms and go through their medicinal properties. I'll also bring you through the cultivation process of the mushrooms in Hifas de Terra, and we will just look a little bit at dosage and the potency of each of our supplements. And then so really just to kind of bring you through how you would use these extracts to support your clients in clinical practice. Okay, so mushrooms, as we know, have been around for a very long time. So for thousands of years, ancient cultures have been using mushrooms, and I'm just going to bring you through a little bit of the history, which is quite interesting. So medicinal mushrooms have been used for a long time in traditional Chinese medicine, but we probably have only started to kind of become more interested in medicinal mushrooms now in the West over the last decade or so. But so just to kind of bring you through a little bit of the history of the mushrooms. So this is a lovely picture of Otzi, who was found in the Alps. So just to give you an idea of how long these mushrooms have been used in ancient cultures a long time ago. So Otzi, when he was discovered, he was found carrying two types of mushrooms. And one of these mushrooms are really good for fighting off parasites. And when an autopsy was done on Otzi, he was found to have parasites. So already, though thousands and thousands of years ago, intuitively these people knew already that these mushrooms were having that therapeutic effect on parasites and these kind of conditions that they had years ago. So now we have the science to back it up, but intuitively these people knew that the power of these medicinal mushrooms. And so again, for Chinese traditional medicine, have been using these for a long time. So reishi, which is one of the most recognized mushrooms and one of the most researched mushrooms, was known as the immortality mushroom. So this has been used for a long, long time. And it's only really now in Europe and in the West that we are kind of paying a bit more attention. But, for probably only now since the end of the 20th century that we have been using medicinal mushrooms. So again, just in terms of the history, and ancient cultures have been using them for a long time. But in Ireland and in the Western world, fungi has had like a bad name really in the West. So what we might be familiar with is the potato blight in the famine, which would have been caused by fungi, and which would have caused thousands of death due to malnutrition in Ireland. So for a long time it had a bad name, but then of course along came Alexander Fleming to change all of that, and who discovered the antibiotic strain of penicillium. And this is where we started to kind of pay more attention then to the power of fungi. So, mycotherapy today, so many of our top-selling pharmaceuticals are derived from mushrooms and from other fungi. So a lot of our antibiotics, as we were saying, and our statins, so compounds such as lovastatin and simvastatin. So in the pharmaceutical industry now are really utilizing these powerful properties in mushrooms. Also in Japan, they have been extracting bioactive compounds from Coriolis. So, so they've been approved since 1984, and they have been used in integrative therapy for digestive cancers. And this is one of the mushrooms we would use quite a bit in our oncology range, which I will go through with you later on in the presentation. So mushrooms have been around for a long time, so they have had to evolve and adapt, and so they've develop these survival mechanisms themselves. So we can utilize a lot of what they've learned over these thousands and thousands of years by adapting to pathogens and other diseases. So why are we so interested in mushrooms? Because of these bioactive compounds. So beta-glucans, the prebiotics, our B vitamins, our vitamin C, and a lot of the mushrooms, as we go through, we'll see the minerals that are quite high in. They also have all the essential amino acids. So, but what we're really interested in are the beta-glucans and the triterpenes. So we'll go through those bioactive compounds in a little more detail. And so there are many clinical trials that are helping us really see, exactly the bioactive compounds. And so it's not really just with Hifas Terra. You would really just have to go into PubMed or even go into a Google search and research mushrooms, especially reishi. If you were to insert Ganoderma and its beneficial properties on chronic disease, you would find many, many papers. So reishi is one of the most researched, but there are many clinical trials. Hifas Terra themselves are conducting trials, but there are many trials all over the world, researching these properties. So again, 40% of our Western medicines utilize mushrooms. So as we were saying, the statins, anti-cancer medications, so we have been using them for a long time, but it's only really in the last kind of decade that we're really researching more about the properties, the bioactive compounds. So an interesting fact then, as humans, we do share almost half our genetic makeup. So we are part mushroom, but we are affected by a lot of the same diseases and problems as mushrooms. So as we were saying, they have evolved and adapted over millions of years. So I think they know a thing or two about fighting off pathogens. So we can easily take advantage of the immune enhancing benefits and the other survival methods that they've built for themselves over these many years. So again, we've witnessed a huge surge in the research and pharmaceutical potential of mushrooms, and we do know a lot, but we've only really tipped it's only the tip of the iceberg really at the moment of what we know about the potential of these mushrooms. So we are going to discuss a few of the mushrooms, the well-researched mushrooms, but there are thousands and thousands more that we are still not, that we really don't know a lot about. But the chief medicinal uses of mushrooms that we have discovered so far are anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, antimicrobial, antiviral, anti-allergic, anti-diabetic, anti-tumor, and many, many, many more. So this is really just the start of it. So anti-everything. And I could really, really go on, but these are the chief medicinal uses that we have discovered so far and that we are using these mushrooms for. So the compounds in the mushrooms that we are interested in are those like beta-glucans and the triterpenes, which have anti-tumor effects. So the antioxidant side of things, then the polyphenols that we have in the mushrooms. And then the vitamins, so we have plenty of B vitamins. So, for example, shiitake would be very high in vitamin B12, which is really important, say, for vegans, you know. So when we are seeing clients in practice who are following, you know, a strict diet or a vegan diet, you know, this is something that could be really useful. Minerals, then we have iodine, potassium, phosphorus. So these are just a few of the minerals that our mushrooms will contain, and then also the fibers. So let's have a little look at the mushrooms themselves. So these are some of the mushrooms that we'll discuss. So we have shiitake, cordyceps, reishi, maitake, lion's mane, turkey tail, royal stone agaricus, coprinus, oyster, and polyporus. So the first few are the ones that I'm really going to concentrate on today. So as I said, shiitake is the mushroom of choice. It's actually a great liver protector, so it's something we can think about there when we are seeing clients who would need support there. And also it's high in B12, high in zinc, so also known for its antibacterial properties. So cordyceps is something we would use for energy. So if we have clients who have chronic fatigue, this is something we might put in. Also people who are maybe looking after people on the sports side of things, cordyceps would be hugely useful here for energy and creating ATP. So reishi then is, again, as I said, our most researched mushroom. So it has anti-inflammatory properties. So we would use this a lot in our protocols along with the other mushrooms, but reishi is one that we would put in quite a bit for that, for the anti-inflammatory action. So the triterpene content of the reishi is what we're interested in here for anti-inflammatory. And it has a similar action to that of hydrocortisone, so without all the nasty side effects, and also antibacterial. Something that's really good as well with reishi, it acts as a mild sedative. So it's really good for helping people relax and calming the nervous system, and good for sleep. So they're some of the things we would use reishi for. And then maitake, we'll go into a little bit more detail again. And lion's mane is one that we would use a lot for leaky gut. So healing and repairing of the enteric epithelial cells, and also really good for cognitive decline. So we'll look at that a little bit more in more detail. Coriolis is fantastic for its antiviral properties. Coprinus we'll go through that as well, but also good for insulin resistance, and so for managing blood sugar imbalances. Oyster and polyporus we won't cover today, but just to know that they are the mushrooms that are in our supplements. Polyporus, I can just quickly tell you, is great for the respiratory system, great for water retention, great for kidney and the lungs. That's what you would use polyporus for. So that's just a brief rundown of the mushrooms and how you might use those. So we'll go into a little bit more detail of each of those. So again, reishi, anti-inflammatory, reduces insulin resistance, supporting neurological disorders, and then its antioxidant properties. So again, as we were saying, it's one mushroom that we put in quite a lot into our protocols for managing inflammatory conditions. And as we know, most diseases begin with inflammation. So once we are working on the inflammatory side of things, using reishi, it can have huge therapeutic effects. So lion's mane, again, as we said, is fantastic for repair. So the regeneration of myelin and nervous tissues. So it is fantastic for conditions such as Parkinson's, even, you know, for a cognitive decline. So as we said, it's great for regenerating nervous tissue. So when we are looking at conditions such as memory loss, cognitive disorders, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, so they're all the things that you would use, you could put lion's mane in for there. But again, the really important thing that we would use a lot of what we see in clinical practice would be things like leaky gut, clients with allergies. So this is perfect for repairing and regenerating gastric and intestinal epithelium. So coprinus then is, again, what we see a lot in clinical practice is blood sugar imbalance. So coprinus is perfect here, and as it has the capacity to reduce blood sugar levels because of the fiber content in the coprinus mushroom. So it is really fantastic for weight control, also good for endocrine system. But you know, when we are looking at clients who have type 1 and type 2 diabetes, or just generally need to balance their blood sugar levels, we can certainly put that mushroom into a protocol. So so great for managing blood sugar issues. So cordyceps then, as we were saying, so really great for energy. So this is especially good for clients who are having issues, say, with chronic fatigue syndrome. But again, like if many of you practitioners are seeing clients who are athletes or who want to support metabolic energy a bit more, so cordyceps is a really great mushroom to put in here. Also good for improving kidney function and pathologies affected by renal failure. Cordyceps is great for that. And then also for hormone balancing generally, so it's good for increasing testosterone production. One thing to remember with the mushrooms is that they are adaptogenic. So you know, whatever is kind of required in terms of hormonal balance, you know, cordyceps is you know, the mushrooms are adaptogenic. So maitake then is good for immunomodulatory, as are most of the mushrooms, but also good for increasing metabolic activity and reducing fatty acid synthesis from glucose, and then reducing fat stores in adipocytes. So maitake is excellent for the kind of conditions that we might see, you know, cardiovascular, hypertension, obesity. So this is where maitake would really come in here. So you know, it has calming effects, anti-tumor effects. So it's also and good for just, you know, reducing cholesterol levels. So good for just general weight control. So just a little bit more on the cordyceps. So it contains adenosine, which is an energy transference signal transductant in cells and can still exert a wide spectrum of cytoprotection and prevent tissue damage. So when we are treating chronic heart failure or any, anti-inflammatory properties, and also anticonvulsant activity. So it also has nucleotides, and this can inhibit urethral inflammation, so which can be good for promoting blood circulation, improving brain function, and also just, again, enhancing human immunity. So polyporous, actually, we will touch a little on this. So again, as we were saying, just increasing lung capacity. And so really good for any kind of respiratory issues, and also good for any kind of water retention. So good for just draining tissues and eliminating mucus. So I like to think as, polyporous reminds me a lot of the bronchioli in the lungs. So it helps me to remember polyporous is good for respiratory, good for water retention, draining, just general mucousy type conditions. And so shiitake, so just to go through this a little bit more. So again, good for reducing cholesterol levels, and again, along with all the other mushrooms, great for immune modulating, and also good for lowering blood pressure. So with shiitake, we would use this a lot just for any immune issues, any cardiovascular issues, and also good for the liver. So these are things you would use shiitake for. And again, as I said, really high levels of zinc shiitake, and also high in B12. So this is a great mushroom just for people who might be deficient in these nutrients. So just a little introduction into Hifas Terra. So Hifas Terra itself, the name means mycelia of the earth, and Hifas has the founder, Casalina, is a biologist, and she founded the company in '99, and so really focusing on the cultivation of mushrooms and extracting their bioactive ingredients, and so to be used in the supplement range. So so just a little bit on the cultivation process. So when we look at the mushroom, we're looking at just the different parts of the mushroom. So just to give you an idea, so the mycelium is what you would see. It's almost like the roots of the mushroom. So it's what you would see, what we don't really see underground, and consists of the thread-like hyphae. And this is how the fungus absorbs nutrients from the environment. So this is how they exchange nutrients. And the fruiting body is what we're used to looking at on top of the soil. So this is and what helps us identify a mushroom. So the fruiting body is what we see on top of the soil. So you can kind of liken the mycelium to the roots of a tree, and if we were to use the tree as an idea, the fruiting body would be like the apple of the tree. So the fruiting body of the mushroom would be like, what we see on the soil and how we identify different mushrooms. So with the extraction process, we would use both the mycelium and the fruiting body. And the important thing about the extraction process and how we cultivate the mushrooms is that they must be carried out with strict climatic conditions, and this is really to preserve the active ingredients of the mushroom. So when we look at, say, the mushrooms themselves are really good at absorbing nutrients, but not also nutrients, toxins. So it's really important that where they are grown and how they are cultivated is really important. So after harvesting, the mushrooms are dried, and then the extraction process is carried out, and this is how we preserve all the essential ingredients and the bioactive compounds. And so just, you know, the really important things are the climatic conditions, and that they are grown in a controlled environment, and just to ensure stability and that we're extracting all the active ingredients. So again, Hifas Terra uses natural raw organic mushrooms, and so just, you know, as we said, it's important that the environment where these mushrooms are grown is carefully controlled. So I luckily got to go over to Hifas Terra got to see where these mushrooms are grown in the fabulous Galician forests and in Pontevedra in Galicia. So it's a really, really amazing place. And so it was really, really interesting to see the whole process from beginning to end. So again, as we were saying, you know, the medicinal mushrooms requires the control of temperatures, and just to ensure that there is no damage done to the bioactive ingredients. And the medicinal mushrooms, so as we were saying, in the Galician forest, these mushrooms are grown on hardwood logs. So this is really important because it's you know, one thing that we are careful about in the cultivation of the mushrooms is that the substrate of how these mushrooms are grown. So a lot of other products might grow the mushrooms on different substrates, so like, you know, more cereal-based substrates. So the fact that we do this through hardwood logs is important, say, for those who have, you know, say for celiacs, and that they wouldn't be able to use any of the products if the mushrooms are grown on a cereal substrate. So this is just a little bit about, just to expand a little bit more on what we covered there. So in terms, say, they are strict organic, the mushrooms are grown in a controlled environment and certified organic production. So it's vegan, and as I said, it can be used for, you know, for celiacs, so suitable for anyone who have gluten intolerances, lactose intolerances. Also, another important, it's really important that just even the capsule itself is important, because you have all this lovely extract in there, which has been cultivated and grown in this lovely controlled organic environment. But if the capsule itself isn't of the same properties, you know, then the extract itself can absorb any kind of plastic. So the actual capsule itself is made of vegetable capsule, so that's really important as well. So just to give you a bit of an idea of the potency of the mushrooms and the supplements. So if you can imagine, so one single capsule of our extracts here can contain the equivalent of the 15 capsules of our powders, okay? So you would use these extracts more for acute conditions, and then you would kind of move on to the powder and the superfoods when you want to maintain, just for maintenance of the condition. So just to give you an idea, if you had, say, 15 kilos of the mushroom powder, will give you a single kilo of the extract. So just to show you the potency of the extract versus the powder. So in the protocols, and we'll go through a couple of protocols after this. So just what we do is we also put in our ascorbato. So this is our antioxidant formula, and this enhances the absorption of the extract. So the beta-glucans and the triterpenes, it really enhances the bioactive compounds of the mushrooms. So we would often say in our protocols that you would take the ascorbato and then take the extracts to increase the bioavailability. So just a little note of warning. So if you are dealing with any clients who have any kind of sensitivities, or definitely if you're dealing with people with IBS, gastric ulcers, the ascorbato we would say to leave out, and instead maybe have a warm herbal tea or with some lemon. So any kind of maybe citrus, just to increase the bioavailability, but not necessarily the ascorbato in a case of IBD. Okay, so I quickly brought you through these earlier. So this is what our reishi extracts would look like, just to give you an idea. And again, just to recap, reishi is something that we put in all our protocols. It's anti-inflammatory. That's the biggest thing with reishi, but also has this lovely calming effect as well. So it's really good for inflammation, calming the nervous system, and so also good for things like anxiety and insomnia. So these are some of the things you might use reishi for. The mycoleo then, again, just to recap, so good for repairing the gut and regenerating nervous tissue. So we would use it in conditions such as any cognitive disorders, Alzheimer's, but something that we are using a lot and seeing a lot in clinic would be leaky gut. So you put the mycoleo in there. The mNTOI, so then again the maitake. So just to recap, so great for detox and cleansing, high blood pressure. So you would use the maitake for cardiovascular, I think, if you kind of keep that in your mind, thinking of blood pressure, hypertension, and then of course weight control, so lipid metabolism. The mycocord, again, so cordyceps, as we said, so just generating ATP. So if we're seeing clients with chronic fatigue syndrome, we could put this in here. If we're seeing clients who are like semi-professional athletes, you might put the cordyceps in here as well, but also good for kidney support. So also with our mushrooms, we also have blends. So on top of the individual mushrooms that we would put into our protocols, we have mushroom blends. And this is really important because it can really increase the synergistic effect of the mushrooms. So having them together in one extract can be really, really therapeutic. So the mNTOI is something that we would put in for immune support. So this is really good for anybody who has any kind of immune conditions, autoimmune conditions, general good all-round immune defense. So mNTOI is something that we would really put in there. So let's just quickly do one or two little protocols, so just to give you some idea of what you might use the mushrooms for. So with something that we are seeing a lot in clinic would be leaky gut syndrome. So whether, most people that are coming to us, we know there is 9 out of 10 times intestinal permeability. So these are some of the mushrooms you would use for leaky gut syndrome. So for example, these are two mushrooms we would put in here. So mycoleo and myco5. So again, just to recap, the mycoleo is good for the gut healing and again regenerating nervous tissue. So and just the gastric intestinal epithelium. So mycoleo is really good for regenerating. So an example protocol for the mycoleo, you would put one in just before each meal. So we would recommend that clients would take these extracts on an empty stomach. And they would have the ascorbato first of all to increase the bioavailability. So we would generally put in ascorbato, and 5 minutes later then take the extracts. So on an empty stomach, so just to increase the bioavailability. So leaky gut syndrome, myco-Leo, myco-5. So the myco-5 again, just excellent for modulating the immune system, and the myco-Leo then for repairing the gut. So another condition that we would see a lot of would be irritable bowel syndrome. So these are the 3 mushrooms that we might put in here. So again, the mycorrhiza for anti-inflammatory. And so, you know, when we are dealing with clients with irritable bowel syndrome, there's a lot going on. So it's not just really the symptoms that we're dealing with. There's kind of 2 things going on. Like, so, you know, one of the big things is stress. So we have the psychological stress, but we also have stress on the body. So it could be food intolerances or infection or, you know, parasites, these kind of things. So a lot of these things come together when we're dealing with clients with irritable bowel syndrome. So the mycorrhiza you would put in for the inflammation and also for the antibacterial and the antiviral. So anything that, you know, these are kind of things that we associate, the symptoms we associate and with the condition. The myco-Leo, actually, just come back to the mycorrhiza. When we talk about psychological stress, the mycorrhiza is really good as calming on the nervous system as well. So, you know, when we are seeing clients, we are seeing that psychological stress there. So mycorrhiza can be really good for that. The myco-Leo then again for repairing the gut, and then the myco-5 then for tackling any of the immune issues there. So if somebody has, as we said, food intolerances or parasites or bacterial infections, these are the 3 mushrooms that you would put in here. So one more protocol then before we look at finishing up would be polycystic ovary syndrome. So this is something that we would see a lot in clinic also. So again, we would put the ascorbato in to just enhance the absorption of our extracts. So again, mycorrhiza is in here. You will see this a lot in our protocols for the anti-inflammatory side of things, but also the mycorrhiza has hormone modulatory effects as well. So what we're seeing, again, like when we look at polycystic ovary syndrome, we're looking at the inflammation side, but we're also looking at what drives PCOS, and one of those things would be a high GL diet. So we are looking at balancing blood sugar levels here. So we would put the mycocoprin in, and then the mycocord, so the cordyceps again for modulating the hormones as well. So these are the 3 mushrooms we would put in for polycystic ovary syndrome. So also along with our extracts, so, you know, Hifas Terra have a lot of range, supplement range, and along with the extracts, we also have our mushrooms for our children. So these are at a really nice, first of all, very attractive bottles for children, but these are 2 of the mushrooms we would put in for just modulating the immune system for children. And just to give you a little idea, so the Dr. Ray and the Dr. Leo can be used for children 6 months up to 10 years. So again, just really good for helping modulate the immune system for children, helping them fight bacterial infections and pathogens. So these are lovely supplements here. Then as they get moving on, then they can use the Bioganoderma. So this is our superfood. So this is where you have 20% this is just our superfoods that can be used daily. And the Ganoderma then for 12 years plus is where we have 20% of the extract and 80% of the superfood. So just to give you an idea of the potency of each of these supplements, then you would move on up to the higher extracts, which would be, say, for example, the MycORay. So this is kind of a good idea just to help you see the potency of each of the supplement range. So this is our bio range then. So again, these are our superfoods that can be used daily in our in our diet. So the biointestine, the biovital for any viral infections, biodefense. The Ganoderma then is our just the superfood for which is similar to the MycORay. So this is our reishi that's in the Ganoderma, and then the bioviral. So these are the superfood range. Also, Hifas to Terra. So for many of you that might have seen us at the weekend and came over to our stand, you would have seen our lovely serums and the so just our skin range also. And just to give you a little idea of the Myco serum, so some of you may have gotten the samples of the Myco serum at the weekend. So just to give you an idea of the antioxidant levels in the serum, so you can see this little graph here at the end. So a lot of you might be aware of other serums such as the Dr. Perricone and the Creme de la Mer. So our serum is higher in antioxidant properties. So that's just interesting to see. So this is the derma range, so the Myco serum, the Mycolift, and then the soap. And also within the range is our oncology range. And over time, like today, really, we're just really touching on giving you a little idea of the Mycotherapy, the range, but further down the line, we will have more webinars that will go into the range specifically. So we'll go more into the Myco-Onco range in webinars in the future. But just to give you an idea of the range in terms of its potency, our you can see that it has a high amount of the extracts. So even higher again than the extract that we've just looked at there. So the Myco-Onco range is at a really, really high therapeutic dose. And just as you know, when we're using these extracts in clinical practice, what's really important is safety. So we have done the assessment of how the mushrooms are metabolized. So the mushroom extracts are really safe to use in practice. So, you know, a lot of us, when we are seeing clients, a lot of our clients are going to be on a lot of medications, but you can be you know, just know that it is safe to use the mushrooms because these studies have been done. So it's very safe to use the mushrooms alongside medications. Thank you all for being with me this evening, and really just to go through the mushrooms again. As I said, it was a very quick talk at the weekend, and so thank you for joining me this evening to bring you a little bit more through the mushrooms and to give you an idea of the protocols and how you might use the mushrooms in practice. And as I said, we'll have more webinars in the future. The next one that we will have will be in December, so do join us for that. It's so if you are interested in that, do email us at health@hifastoterra.com and we will register you for the webinar. But further down the line, as I said, we will have more events that will go into more particular or specific protocols. So we might do something more on, say, neurodegenerative diseases, or might go into a little bit more detail on the oncology range. So we will keep you posted on webinars further down the line. So I'm going to pass you over to Romina.
firstly, a big thank you to Sheila for really walking us through this journey on understanding how we can use mycotherapy and mushrooms in clinical practice. I know a couple of you sent me some private questions, but if you do have any specific questions right now, this would be the time to ask us. Anything regarding what Sheila said, whether it was specific information on any of the mushrooms or specific questions on the cultivation process, dosages or protocols, you know, we're here to answer any of your queries regarding this. So if you know how to use the GoToWebinar chat and questions, you can just email them, as in type in your question there. Aside from that, as Sheila was saying, on the 6th of December, we have an exciting Christmas webinar coming up. And we all know that, you know, the festive season can be quite a stressful season. So we thought that on the 6th of December, one of our practitioner account managers, Linda Sims, will be walking us through the specific mushrooms needed to beat the stress. And she will be looking at different protocols concerning immune health and adrenals as well. So I do hope you keep that date in your diary for the 6th of December. It would be at the same time from 6:30 to 7:30 on a Wednesday evening. And as Sheila was saying, we have interesting knowledge banks for practitioners. If you signed up to a practitioner discounts as well as other packages. And really it's a chance to email us at health@hifas@terra.com for any cases that you might have, whether they're complex cases or just specific questions. We actually have a very solid group of practitioners that are here to really take up your question with our medical team and support you to use mushrooms in your clinical practice. So yeah, this would be really the moment. As Sheila said, we also will be, we have in the pipeline in January another webinar specifically on gut health. I know she walked us through IBS today and leaky gut, but there's so many other digestive disorders that are present today and that I'm sure you experience in your clinical practice, whether it's, you know, Crohn's, dysbiosis, acid reflux. So we're really hoping that in January we'll look at that webinar as well. So I can see that there was one specific question that's come through. So I thought we could check that question. So the question is, you know, what is, how, you know, what exactly is lion's mane role in gut health? So I think Sheila did take us through lion's mane mushroom, which actually contain very specific active compounds, erinaceus and other triterpenes that have the ability to not just heal the gut, so heal the epithelial cells in the gut wall, but actually many studies have shown that this specific mushroom extract, a therapeutic dosage of this mushroom extract, has the ability to also regenerate some of the damaged cells. So I personally find this specific mushroom extract, lion's mane, very fascinating, because I think that, you know, in our practice we talk a lot about healing the gut, but there aren't that many active compounds that are able to actually regenerate some of the damaged cells. So definitely we've seen some amazing results with lion's mane mushroom for a lot of the dysbiosis and different gut issues. Sheila walked us through IBS and was it acid reflux, Sheila? No, I think it was leaky. I was listening to the webinar. So again, the therapeutic dosage for these protocols vary according to someone's weight and height. So if you're talking about someone who's, a petite person then maybe you want to look at giving 1 capsule. But if the problem is quite advanced, then you're looking at 2 capsules of the lion's mane extract. So definitely, though, if there are any flare-ups in digestive disorders, maybe at that time during the crisis or the flare-up, you may want to avoid taking the lion's mane extract. But when we're talking about chronic digestive disorders, and in that case, lion's mane is very, very effective. For flare-ups, I would say wait possibly a few days, but definitely during the gut healing process, lion's mane is very much effective. So if you have some of the other questions will be emailed to you, because I know we are running out of time. But again, do feel free to contact us. We're here to walk you through mycotherapy. It's actually a very, I would say in the West, it's something that seems quite new, but all over the world, in Australia, in the US, I just came from the US a few weeks ago. Medicinal mushrooms, Germany, Japan, China, medicinal mushrooms are being used on a daily basis in clinical practice. So if you haven't tried any of the therapeutic dosages, I would really recommend you to try it on yourself, on your family or your clients, and just give it a go. Because again, as Sheila said, there are no interactions with medication. So it's a great way to explore this new type of therapy and to see how these mushroom properties are really, really beneficial for human health. I'd like to end with a huge thank you to Sheila, and hopefully she'll join us again for some of the other webinars. As she did say, we have walked you through some of the mushrooms, but definitely in some of the other webinars you will see we will walk you through other mushrooms, such as the polyporous mushroom, coprineous mushroom, and many other blends that we'd like to walk you through. So thank you again, and I hope you enjoyed today's webinar, and wishing all of you a lovely, lovely evening. Bye for now.